So I wanted to share with you some thoughts about Parashat Teruma and the concept of giving tzedakah, giving over to something greater than ourselves. What does it do for us, actually? That is really the question which I'm trying to elaborate on. So,
if I can say, I was reading that the building of the Mishkan was Hashem's response to the building of the golden calf.
Of the golden calf, right.
I think that's real. How do you know that?
Yeah. Well, this is really that's... see, the problem with that, I mean, what you're saying is correct, but there is more to it. Just because of the, not just because, but if you look at the fact that the Torah discusses Teruma before it discusses the Chet HaEgel, would seem to indicate that there is something in the Mishkan which is also independent of the Chet HaEgel. So you see what I'm saying? In other words, if it was only a consequence of the Chet HaEgel, then there would be no reason for the Torah to chronologically to discuss first Teruma and building the Mishkan before the Chet HaEgel took place. So therefore there are a lot of different opinions about that. But it's without getting into all the opinions, it seems that there is something about Teruma which is not only dependent on the Chet HaEgel. You have some things that you need a trigger to make it happen, but nonetheless the concept exists without a trigger also. So I think it's something in those lines, if you see what I'm trying to say.
It shows too the importance of physicality in helping with spirituality. So
right.
The exclusion of one from the other.
Right. Definitely the Chet HaEgel was a problem with our lack of ability to deal with only spirituality, while the Mishkan is really giving us something physical to connect to. So to say that we only needed that because of the Chet HaEgel would imply that it would be possible as humans not to have a Mishkan, but it doesn't seem to be true. In other words, humans will need a Mishkan, because if the Chet HaEgel would not have happened, something else would have happened. Because by the fact that we are humans, we have to connect to something physical. That's what I'm trying to say, right? But the trigger that brought actually the Mishkan would be the Egel. But again, there's so many opinions on these things. So I want to go through the Psukim with you and share some thoughts. So on your page 1, the beginning of the parasha, דבר אל בני ישראל ויקחו לי תרומה מאת כל איש אשר ידבנו ליבו תיקחו את תרומתי. So I will translate in English, speak to Bnei Israel, says God, ויקחו לי תרומה. ייקחו לי should take for me teruma. Teruma would mean elevation in the literal sense, but rather the translation in this point, in this context, would be donation. So v'yikchu li teruma, you take the donation. Now, what does taking a donation mean? So in English, it would indicate that we're talking about the gabbai. The gabbai would take the donation from the person who donates, right? That's what v'yikchu li teruma would seem to be. But we'll see it's not that simple. Me'et kol ish asher yidavenu libo, from any person whose heart is to donate, tikchu et trumati, take my truma. And then we're going to skip to Pasuk Gimel, which is right below, V'zot ha-truma asher tikchu me'itam, the next Pasuk, and this is the truma, you take from them zahav, v'chesef u'nechoshet. So in this last Pasuk, it's clear that the subject of the verb are the gabayim. This is the truma that you should take from them. That couldn't be more clear. You take the truma from the people who give the truma. That is clear. However, at the beginning, v'yikchu li truma is not clear who is the subject of the verb. because many Rishonim, many Mefarshim learned, hello sir, please take a seat.
Thank you.
Your name is?
I'm Uncle Gabriel.
Uncle Gabriel. Oh, I'm Grandpa Moshe. So many Mefarshim say V'yikchu li teruma is not referring to the Gabayim that take from them teruma, but rather the person himself who is donating, he is taking. So we're talking to the people who are about to give teruma, and we say to them, V'yikchu li teruma, take for me teruma. And that's the only way we could understand the connection, so this, Rashi learns that V'yikchu li means to hafrasha, to separate. So it cannot, the Gabai is not separating, he is taking. So when Rashi translates V'yikchu li as separating, is referring to the person who is giving. Then also Rashi says, also it's quoted over here, V'yikchu li teruma, the first in Pasuk Bet, in the Rashi Bet, li l'shmi. So we're supposed to give teruma l'shem Hashem, l'shmi. God is speaking. Give teruma for me. So now they couldn't be talking about the Gabai, because why should the Gabai take the teruma for Hashem? I mean, I guess it's a nice thing if he doesn't forget. But instead it would make more sense to say that the one who is giving the teruma should do l'shem shamayim, right? Now, the Gabai who takes is really only an agent, but the person who gives is the one who is doing the mitzvah. So Rashi says, V'yikchu li, give teruma for my sake, for Hashem, l'shem shamayim. So it's referring here to the one who is giving teruma. And the question is,
so why are they using the word take instead of give?
Exactly, that's the question. Why would the Torah say to take in order to give, in order to say to give? So I think that, the concept of by giving you are taking, I think it's a clear concept. But I want to elaborate a little bit on this. In what sense are we taking? Right? The truth is, this is a concept which is well known not only in the Jewish and Torah circles. I read recently an article about this very wealthy man, I forgot his name, who was interviewed for all kinds of things, and then he was asked, what kind of advice can you give me? And he said, you should give tithe. Give miser, give money, and that's the best thing you can do for yourself. By giving, you're really taking. So, but that's a reference to Olam Hazeh, with completely to this world, which is certainly true. And I want to go maybe a level behind. Yes, please. Your name again? I'm sorry.
Chanoch.
Chanoch, yes.
So my understanding is that we should give with the same joy as we receive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we should give with the same joy as we receive. Now, receiving what from whom? Receiving things that we deserve, right? Because receiving things we don't deserve, we should have no joy in receiving. We should only, so we should give with the same joy that we receive things that we deserve, because by deserving, we actually appreciate very much what we deserve. And then when we give, we appreciate very much the fact that we have the opportunity to give. And both of them are the same joy, actually the opportunity to exist, to live, which means always to give and take is what life is all about, actually, right? We're all give and take, right? So, Uncle Gabriel, did you get a sheet?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Very good. So, we find the concept of taking in different instances. Sometimes taking is something very, very good, while sometimes the concept of taking is viewed by the Tanakh and by Chazal as not always taking is a good thing. So I want to bring some psukim. First of all, the very famous pasuk we're all familiar with is Ki lekach tov natati lachem. Lekach, something that you take. A lekach tov, a very good acquisition I have given you. Torati al ta'azovu, do not forget, do not forsake my Torah. So here, taking the Torah is something which is very, very valuable, very important. This is the best thing you can possibly take. Now, the Torah talks about lekach, about taking in a negative context. And I'd like you to look at Gimel. No, I'm sorry, Hey. That's on page 1 also. Hey on page 1. So we have two people who are takers. Ve'avshalom lakach, vayatsev lo b'chayav. So Avshalom, you remember Avshalom was a very, how would I describe him? A terrible character. He was the son of David HaMelech, and he rebelled against his father, wanting to become king. And he could have become king had he just waited his time, because he was the oldest son from David HaMelech, but he didn't want to wait. He wanted to become the Melech too early. So it says, Vayikach, V'Avshalom lakach, he took. So what did he take? The pasuk continues, V'yatsev lo b'chayav, he took, and he built himself a monument. So what he took is not clear from the pasuk itself. So the Gemara says in Sotah like this. No, it's in Sotah, right? Vayikach, no, it is in Sotah, yes. My lakach, what did he take? Amarish Lakish, shelakach mekach ra le'atzmo. He took a bad acquisition for himself. He was koneh something bad. Now it's the fact that he did what he did end up to be something negative. So that means he can take something and it's not going to be a good thing. The other taker in the Torah is Vayikach Korach. Right? Korach took. What did he take? He started making an argument with Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. He wanted to be the Kohen, and the whole big machloket in Parashat Korach. But it starts, the Torah starts with Vayikach Korach. He took. What did he take? So at the end of the page, no, so in Sanhedrin it says, Shelakach also lakach mekach ra le'atzmo. He took something bad for himself. And the Gemara in Sotah, at the very end of the page, the Gemara says like this, that people who are interested in getting things that they don't deserve, they not only won't they get it, but even what they do have, they're going to end up losing. And the Gemara says, V'chein matzinu b'Kayin, Korach, Bil'am, right, all these figures, Kain, Korach, Bil'am, Doeg Adami was a terrible general of David HaMelech who was responsible for the death of countless of people, and he had always had a scheme. It's not clear what he wanted, but he wanted to get something out of it, and he lost everything. Achitophel was the advisor of David HaMelech originally, and then he went with Avshalom against David. Gehazi was the servant of Elisha, and he was very attracted to monetary gain, and he wanted to get what he shouldn't have been getting, and he lost everything. Sorry, and he got Sarat, terrible story, excuse me. Avshalom, we just spoke about before, Adoniyahu, he was another son of David HaMelech who wanted to rebel. Uzziyahu wanted to be a Kohen. Haman wanted to take everything from the Jews and destroy Bnei Yisrael. So all of these people, Natnu Enehem B'ma she'no ra'u lahem, they put their eyes onto something that doesn't belong to them, they shouldn't be trying to reach. Whatever they requested, whatever they wanted was not given to them. Whatever they had was taken away from them. So here we have mekach, lekach, something that one acquires which could be good, Torah, lekach, something that can be bad. And we see that the concept of lekach is meant in also in the ultimate sense, and then if you look at Bet, also page 1, it says, Al tira ki asher ish kirbe kvod beto. Don't be afraid, says David HaMelech, like don't be shattered by the fact that some people get very, very wealthy. He's got a lot of kavod and he doesn't seem to deserve it. So the pasuk continues, Ki lo bemoto yikach hakol. He will not take everything with him when he dies. Lo yered acharav kavodo. His kavod will not follow him. So here also we find the kicha in terms of what does a person take in the ultimate sense. Is it something good? Is it something bad? So the monetary, the earthly possessions is not something that's going to take along.
Rabbi?
Sure, Moshe.
Talk a little bit about the concept of deserving.
Of what?
Deserving. What constitutes
Deserving is what a person earns. Ultimately, in terms of ruchaniyut, is what he works for, and he gets the ruchaniyut. He gets person who is involved in spirituality, that he gets spirituality. That's something that he deserves. Somebody who works at a job and he's a honest worker, he deserves whatever he gets. A person invests honestly, he deserves whatever money he makes. These are all honest gains. But and that's perfectly, and that's how God blesses him, by giving him what he deserves. That's the way life works, right?
Some people think that if they show up, they deserve.
And some people think by swindling around they will deserve, but they don't. You have to be honest. We have to work hard. You know, the ultimate worker who worked so hard and so diligently and so honestly was Yaakov Avinu. And he was really working for a swindler, for a Lavan. But nonetheless, he was faithful and he worked very, very hard. And every penny he got was blessed by God. That's the way, that's what we deserve, right? And if we think that we're going to get more Chalila by being, as in Yiddish, by trying to be, smarter and just trying to get things we don't deserve, then it's certainly the wrong...
What about the tricks that Yaakov...
I'm sorry?
What about the tricks that Yaakov made?
That's a very good question. But it's a difficult question to answer.
I'm not speaking the first one. I'm speaking
with the sheep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, if you look at it, he really got what he deserved also, because he didn't take away anything from Lavan. Now it's Lavan promised him those colored sheep and animals, and he didn't take them away from him. He only made sure that that those type of sheep will be born. But the sheep that he had were his. He was given a certain amount of sheep, and then he was able to multiply them. But he didn't take anything away from Lavan. But a different explanation. But in any case, he didn't take anything. That's clear. He didn't steal from Lavan. He just outsmarted him in an honest way. But you have to, this was the way Lavan put the situation was that he really didn't have much choice, but tried to do it in a smart way, because otherwise, God could always give him in a miraculous way what he deserved. But according to the nature, he had to behave in a very, very cunning way, but it was still honest. Nothing was dishonest about it.
And what about the deception with Esau?
The deception with getting the bracha. See, there, Yaakov was doing a favor to Esau, because Esau really didn't deserve the bracha, nor did he really want the bracha. I just didn't understand. He thought that the bracha was something, why not? I get a bracha too, that's great, I can get. He was a getter, he was a go-getter, Esau. He wasn't willing to invest and deserve brachot. And Yaakov showed him that that's not really what you want. You want olam hazeh, which is not the bracha that we're talking about. The bracha we're talking about is the bracha of v'yiten lecha ha'elokim. Elokim is din, means that we have to deserve it, and this is something we have to toil for, something which is difficult, something we have to invest and take sometimes long time to get. That's not what you want, Yaakov Avinu. So there's a beautiful medrash. It's not the subject of a discussion, but just if you're asking, the beautiful medrash that says that at one point when Yaakov came back to Esav, and he gave them all those presents and all, all the sheep that he gave them and all, then Yaakov says, Esav says, what about the bracha? So he says, okay, fine, I'll give you back the bracha. Great. So he gets the bracha, and he goes back home, and he goes to his wife, we got everything, we got so many presents, we got even the bracha back. So what is this bracha all about? So he tells her about Olam Haba and about deserving and toiling. We're crazy, we don't want that bracha, that's not for us. I mean, Midrashim don't always have to be taken literally, this is what happened, but that's the idea, that had he even gotten back the bracha, he wouldn't have wanted it. So really it's like, like at the beginning, the Bechorah. So Yaakov tells Esav, what do you want, what would you rather have? Some soup or Bechorah? It's in front of you. You want the soup? So you don't deserve the Bechorah. The Bechorah is not a soup. If it's equivalent for you, then it's not for you. Don't you understand? So that's what Yaakov was trying to show Esau. Not to take away something that didn't belong to him. And he wanted to, so that's, I think, the idea of but Yaakov was perfectly honest, perfectly trustworthy, truthful, loyal. Yeah. Okay. Right. So here we're talking about someone who is giving charity, giving for the building of the temple of the Beit HaMikdash. So that is called kicha, to take. And we are trying to say that this kind of kicha is a good taking. Well, we saw that other taking can be bad. Now, of course, you'll tell me, you're giving to the Beit HaMikdash, how can you compare that to a Korach who's trying to say something, take something which he doesn't deserve, such as the Kahuna, or Avshalom trying to take the Melucha? Of course, if you give and you do a mitzvah, of course you take good things for yourselves. And this is true. However, there is some subtlety into it. In other words, does it mean that whenever we do a mitzvah, whenever we do something good, automatically it's something that we take along with us because it's something which is ultimately good? Or maybe it's not that simple. So you'll ask, what do you mean? Well, how difficult could it be? You make a mitzvah, then it's the right thing to do. Yeah, but what about the kavanah? What about the thought that you have when you make the mitzvah? Is just the mitzvah meant to be done, or to be done with heart, with kavanah? So we saw at the beginning where we mentioned the Rashi, v'yikchu li truma. Here Rashi insinuates, yes, take the truma. If you want to take something for yourself, give, but the truma is to be done lishmi, for my sake. What does that really mean? So I want to bring you to another Gemara, which we're going to see that things is not that simple one way or the other. So it's at the page 4, at the very end, there is a Gemara in Psachim. I didn't put numbers because I only printed whatever. I didn't get to write the numbers. So you see Talmud Bavli Mesechet Psachim Daf Amud Aleph in the middle of the page, if you have that. So they were talking about B'dikat Chametz. No, it's not. A few months from now, right? About 3 months from now, we're already holding in Adar Aleph, Solar Bet. 2 months from now, we're talking about 2.5 months from now, we're going to do what?
April 15th.
April 15th, right? So now we're just a little bit over 2 months. We're going to do B'dikat Chametz. Now, imagine that the guy is doing B'dikah and he is searching for something in a place which could be dangerous. There's a wall and something could happen, the wall could collapse or something like that. But he's doing a mitzvah. He's searching for the chametz. Hello. I'm good. How are you, sir?
Fine, fine.
It's okay if I speak without a mask because you won't be able to hear me, and
Yeah, it's fine.
and I'm vaccinated, and hopefully I'm well. What is your name, sir?
Eliyahu.
Eliyahu. Oh, I'm also Eliyahu. I'm Moshe Eliyahu, actually. Nice meeting you. Yeah, so the guy is searching for the chametz, and he's searching it in a place which is dangerous. Now, the question is, are you allowed to put yourself in danger or not? So you shouldn't put yourself in danger. However, there is a concept of shluchei mitzvah einan nizakin. A person who is doing a mitzvah is not going to be hurt. So if the danger is not a really big danger, it could happen, then you can rely on that, right? I don't know if you saw the custom that many people fly away, that somebody gives them $1 or a few shkalim, whatever money it is. Take this money with you to wherever you go and give this money to tzedakah. Why? Because then your trip is not only a trip for leisure, it's also to do a mitzvah, and then you will not get a chalila, nothing bad will happen to you. So that's this concept here the Gemara discussing in Pesachim. So the guy is searching for his chametz. Now, so we saw if what he's doing is only the mitzvah, he gets protection. He gets protection from heaven. Now, what happens if the guy has got also another thought in his mind, because he lost his watch? And he's thinking that this watch might be in that wall. Now, the Gemara doesn't talk about the watches. There are no watches there. I'm just giving an example. He's got something there in the wall. So he says, oh, gee, I'm going to be searching for my chametz, but I'm also going to be searching for my watch. Then is he going to be protected by heaven or not? Because you cannot say that what he's doing is completely is only l'shem shamayim. He's also doing it for his own purpose. He's looking for his watch. So the Gemara discusses that, right? If you have some other things in mind, but li lishmi, but Hashem. So the Gemara says, yes, he will be protected. And the Gemara says like this. I'm not going to read the Gemara inside. Only the very end of the Gemara I will read inside. Ukehai gavna lav mitzvah. You want to tell me that if he has other things in mind besides the mitzvah, isn't it a mitzvah to be protected? Vatanya, it says in the Braita, Haomer, a very famous statement of a Braita. Haomer, a person says, Sela zo litzdaka. This coin, Sela is more than a coin, it's a seasonal amount of money, is to be given to tzedakah. Bishvil sheyichyeh beni. My son Nebuch is sick, so I'm giving this tzedakah so my son should get healthy. Or sheyeh ben olam haba. Or I'm trying to take something olam haba, take something with me. So the Gemara says, Haredet Sadik Gamur. He's a complete Sadik. So therefore he should be protected. So Gemara says that in such a case it will be okay. But we are there. The Gemara says that there is a problem because while he is searching for the chametz, he can also be searching for his watch. But after he took away the chametz and he didn't find his watch, he might continue to look for his watch. Then he won't be protected, because if he's only looking for his watch, there's no protection from heaven. But if he's doing both, then he will be protected from heaven. So the point that I'm trying to make from this Gemara is that we see that even if a person is not completely doing something l'shem shamayim, he's got some ulterior, how do you say?
Ulterior motive?
Again?
Ulterior motive.
Ulterior motives, yes, so, the word wrong, yes? Then he's still protected, he still does a mitzvah, he's still at Tzaddik Gamor. So therefore, we have to understand what does lishmi mean. In other words, why is it so important to give teruma only l'shem Hashem? I'm doing it also for myself. I'm trying to to do something so I can have Olam Haba. So something for me, not just God's got enough. Let me take something for me too. What's wrong with that? But Rashi says no. It has to be lishmi. To be a real teruma has to be really lishmi. And I want to quote to you a very scary Rambam now. This Rambam really, I think, illustrates my point very, very well. And that's what we learned already on Thursday, but it's such a beautiful Gemara and such a beautiful Rambam that we should really repeat it over again many, many times. So I go back to page 2. The Rambam, it's in the end of Perusha Mishnayot Mesechet Makot. There, the Mishnah says something that we're all familiar with. I think all familiar with because any of us who have been to in Shul and after, between Mincha and Maariv, there is Ratzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Yisrael lefichach hirba lem Torah mitzvahs. Familiar with that sentence? Yes. Shenemar Hashem chafetz leman tzidko v'torah v'yad. I will translate. Ratzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God wanted lezakot et Yisrael, to bring merits to us, the Jewish nation. Lefichach, therefore, hirba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. Therefore, He gave us a lot of Torah and mitzvot. Shene'emar, as it says, Hashem chafetz leman tzidko. God is interested for the merit of Yisrael, tzedek, in the sense of merit. Yagdil Torah v'yadir, made the Torah very big and very awesome. So the Rambam wants to understand why is it that if there are more mitzvot, then it's better for us. Someone could argue, so many mitzvot, come on, let's give me a break, right? Let's have a little bit less mitzvot, it's going to be easier, everything you have to worry, worry about every time. Get up in the morning, already you have to Negelwasser, and you have to do this, you have to daven, so many things. Every minute of our day is really, is part of what we have to deal with. Give me a break, make things a little bit easier. Why is so many mitzvot so much better? Right? We wouldn't mind. Maybe I wouldn't mind if it would be a little bit easier, right? We'd like to think that. So the Rambam explains like this. The Rambam says, maybe I will read with you the Rambam because it's you won't believe me otherwise. So let's see what the Rambam says. Miyesodot ha'emunah b'Torah. One of the yesodot, the basis of the emunah in the Torah, שאם קיים האדם מצווה מ-13 ו-600 מצוות כראוי וכהוגן, ולא שתף עמם מטרה ממטרות העולם הזה כלל, אלא עשה לשמה מאהבה, כמו שביארתי לך. So if a person does any one of the mitzvahs, and he didn't mixed with it any type of purpose which is materialistic, but rather he does it completely lishma, completely in the name of God, mi'ahava, out of love, as I explained to you. It's not clear what the Rambam means, as I explained to you. I don't know, it's not clear what he's referring to, although there is a Rambam which we're going to learn a bit later on, that in the Ilchot Shuvah, which seems to be saying that the things, we have to worship God out of complete love, with nothing, no ulterior motives. So, Harei hu zocheh lechayei olam haba. Then he will merit olam haba. So what Rambam is saying is that in order to get olam haba, we have to do things completely l'shem shamayim, with nothing else in mind. And now he brings a very, very interesting Gemara, and I will not read the Gemara inside. I will paraphrase the Gemara. This Gemara in Avodah Zarah, famous Gemara of Rabbi Chananya ben Teradion. Rabbi Chananya ben Teradion, he was the father-in-law of Rabbi Meir, and he was one of the greatest Tanaim, and he was one of the people who died as a Asara Arugei Malchut, as one of the 10 people who were killed by the Romans. So the story starts in Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Chananya ben Teradion goes and is mevaker, he is visiting Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma is another great Tana. He was the Rebbe of Rabbi Hanania. And Rabbi Hanania he was sick. The Rebbe was sick, so he went to visit his Rebbe. So the Rebbe asked him, hey, Hanania dear, I understand, I've heard rumors about you that you are putting yourself in danger and you are doing things which you shouldn't be doing. You're teaching Torah publicly while the Romans have a decree against that. Don't you know that the Romans are very dangerous and they have a special Siyata Dishmaya, God is helping them. God puts them in the world as being the rulers, and they have such atzlacha, so much success. So why are you studying up with them? So Rabbi Hanania answers back, Min hashamayim erachamu. God will help. So Rabbi Yossi says, come on, don't be so religious with me. I'm telling you something that makes sense, and then you're answering me, God will help. Answer my question. Why aren't you afraid? So what are you doing to protect yourself in this world, I mean physically? Because you cannot, see Rabbi Yossi held that you cannot, in a situation of sakana, real sakana, you cannot put yourself in sakana. So Rabbi Hanania says, Rabbi Yossi says, I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to be burned to life, alive, together with the Sefer Torah. That's what happened to him in there. Very scary dialogue. Then Rabbi Hanania asks Rabbi Yossi, ma ani l'chaye olam haba? What am I my olam haba? Am I going to get olam haba? So Rabbi Yossi asks him, Klum ma'aseh ba leyadcha? Have you ever done anything good in your life? Any ma'aseh? Any great deed? So yeah, once I had Ma'ot Purim, I gathered money. I gathered money from people. I collected money from people for Purim, and somehow it got mixed up with my own money, and somehow it was a confusing situation. I gave everything for tzedakah. I didn't make a cheshbon. I gave everything away. So Rabbi Yossi says, great. Then, Yechelki chelkecha, alevai my chelek should be as big as your chelek in Olam Haba. So the Rambam says, what do you mean? He asked, do I have a chelik in Olam Haba? This guy was Mosa Nefesh. Basically he put his life in danger to teach Torah. What greater mitzvah do you need than that? He did everything L'Shem Shemaim. He did such a great mitzvah, and he died L'Shem Shemaim. So the Rambam says, yeah, because in order to get Olam Haba, it has to be done completely L'Shem Shemaim, with nothing personal about it. And maybe you, Rabbi Hanania, maybe that's something that you like. That's what you like to do. People have got, likes maybe likes the danger, likes the action. Who knows what was in your mind? Was it completely Shem Shamayim? Maybe, I don't know, says Rabbi, I do enjoy it. I do enjoy doing it. I mean, something I guess that he like doing, which is okay to enjoy doing it, but it's a completely Shem. You should like doing mitzvahs. But then you can start thinking, well, is it really Shem Shamayim? Maybe I'm doing it because I like it. Or do I do it to Shem Shamayim and I like doing it to Shem Shamayim, right? It's a very, very subtle question. It says, well, here was a situation where I had no cheshbon at all. I had this money and I could have just, nobody looked, nobody saw. I get nothing out of it. I have to give away my money. I just did it because that was the right thing to do. So that shows that he's not there for himself. He's not a taker. He's a giver, right? Says the Rambam, from here you see that in order to get Olam Haba, things have to be done in a pure way. Continues the Rambam and says, that's why Hashem gives us so many mitzvahs. Because since we have to do mitzvahs and learn Torah in such a pure way, so there's so many mitzvahs. So many, one of them will do well. So then there is an occasion to get real Olam Haba by having such a variety of mitzvahs. So then some mitzvahs will do well. And then it seems when you do well some mitzvahs, then it shows that all the other mitzvahs are probably also good. But there's such a choice that you can do that really L'Shem Shamayim, that shows that you're really there not for ourselves. We're not there to take, but rather to give. So that brings back to our question. Here we see that when Rashi says lishmi, that to give teruma has to be done l'shem shamayim, for the purpose of God, it's not just something nice to do, but something essential. If you want to be a taker, take something that belongs to you, you want me to take it along with you to Olam Haba, it has to be done in a completely pure manner. L'shem shamayim. Not just, I like doing mitzvahs, it's fine, and also doing mitzvahs is going to do something good for me, and I'm thinking of getting Olam Haba, and I like to do good, and it's going to ultimately be good for me. If you cannot have that in mind, see, it's very tricky. In other words, if this is going to be for you, you will get Olam Haba. It's going to be a good thing for you, but it shouldn't be the reason why you're doing it. See, you see the thin line. If you do it l'shem shamayim, then all these things will happen. If you're doing for that first, then it might not happen. So it's very, very, very delicate. So maybe we should talk a little bit. I want to say, before I want to go into the Rambam, I do want to share with you a story that I also shared on Thursday about. I think it illustrates that point also very, very well. So we saw the pasuk on page 1, which says, "Al tiraki asher ish ki yirbe kavod beito." Do not be afraid in bet on page 1. Right? We mentioned the pasuk. Do not be afraid if you see a person who is very wealthy, doesn't seem to deserve it. Yirbe kavod beito. The honor of his household is going to be so big. It's going to be like full of wealth and honor. So don't be afraid. So how does he deserve it? Oh, thank you so much. He will not take, when he's going to die, he's not going to take everything with him. His kavod will not follow him. So I once heard from the Ger Rebbe, today's Ger Rebbe, he came to be Menachem Avelim, to give kavod Avelim, my family, and he said the following idea. He said like this: what does it mean? Lo b'moto yikach hakol. He will not take everything when he dies. What does he do? What does he take? He takes nothing, right? We don't take anything when we die. We go to the grave. No, we do take something. Torah and Masim Tovim. So, not everything will he take along, right? All the wealth that he has won't follow him. No. But some things will follow him. Torah, Masim Tovim. However, said the Rebbe, that's only true if he does it with no intention to get honor out of it. Kavod. He does it completely in a pure manner. Lo yered acharav kevodo. If he does it for the kavod, that kavod will not follow him, because that's not going to take along. So here we see again the idea: give tzedakah, yes, but don't do it in order to get kavod, because that's not going to follow you. That follows the Rambam, that things have to be done l'shem shamayim and not for any alternate motives. So maybe we can look together the Rambam. Hilchot Shuvah, this is on page 3. So that's the last parak of Hilchot Shuvah. This is Hilchot Shuvah is an incredible. Everything of the Rambam is incredible, but if I think that Chabad is particularly great in learning the Rambam, which is an incredible sefer. And the Hilchot Shuvah is particularly fascinating before Chodesh Elul. It's so beautifully put together by the Rambam. So the last parak of Hilchot Shuvah says the Rambam like this: Al Yomar Adam, a person shouldn't say, Hareini oseh mitzvot HaTorah v'osek b'chochmata, כדי שיקבל כל הברכות הכתובות בה, או כדי שאזכה לחיי עולם הבא. A person shouldn't say, okay, I am doing mitzvot, I am osek b'chochmata, meaning I'm involve myself in the chochmat Torah, I'm learning Torah, and that's because I want to be blessed, and I want to get olam haba. No. והפרוש מן העבירות שהזהירה התורה, and I'm going to be careful not to make any sins, כדי שנצא מן הקללות הכתובות בתורה, in order to save myself from curses. או כדי שלא יכרת מחיי עולם הבא, חס ושלום, I shouldn't have curses, I shouldn't be cut off עולם הבא. Person shouldn't say that. אין ראוי לעבוד את השם על הדרך הזה. It's not proper to worship God in this manner. שהעובד על דרך זה הוא עובד מיראה. Someone who serves Hashem in this way, he serves Hashem out of fear, because he is afraid to get punished, or is afraid not to get Olam Haba. Means Yira means it comes out of his awareness of the reality that unless he does things the right way, then he's not going to get what he needs or what he wants, or God forbid get the bad instead. ואינה מעלת הנביאים ולא מעלת החכמים. It's not the great levels the Nevi'im talk about, or Chachamim, ואין עובדים השם על דרך זה, אלא עמי הארץ. People who worship God in such a way, they are just עמי הארץ, just ignorant people. הנשים, הקטנים, okay, here it includes also the women. This is a bit not so politically correct to say that in our days, that women, because in those days also women were more ignorant. Today you have very, very knowledgeable women and all. The old days women were too busy in the kitchen and doing the laundry and whatnot to be able to really think too much and be involved in Torah. I think today is different. Ktanim, young children.
They still held the family together.
They still do that, absolutely. No, of course. No, I wasn't trying to say before women were not important. Women were very important then, very important now. But before Industrial Revolution, there was so little time for women to do anything else than just holding the family together. They were not if you ask them, why do you do mitzvahs, they wouldn't be able to tell you a sophisticated answer. It was like, well, that's what God says, and this is what I'm going to get. This is what we're meant to do in order to get Olam Haba, things like that. They might have said that. Well, people are more sophisticated and understand that's not the reason we're doing things. But in today, women have more time to study and to. It was really the revolution that took place at the turn of the 1900s. It's when the Beis Yaakov started and all, where women suddenly became involved in all types of intellectual pursuit outside of the Torah. So then we said, well, so if they should be knowledgeable about Schiller and Goethe and all the great writers and philosophers, shouldn't they be familiar with the Torah as well? So that's when we started schools for women and all. But before that, the women didn't have. Although we had the women who were knowledgeable, even in the past 100 years, it was known that the daughters of Rashi were very well versed in Torah, and we had. There was a great rabbi. One of the greatest rabbis in Germany, his name was the Rabbi Chaim Yair Bachrach. I'm a descendant of his, as a matter of fact, and he wrote a book called Chabad Yair. It was one of a very important book, and the book is called Chabad Yair. So Chabad Yair could be managed as the village of Yair. He says, no, I'm calling my book Chabad Yair because my grandmother was Chava. She was the daughter of the Maharal from Prague, my granddaughter, and she knew much more Torah than many, many men, and she taught me. So I'm calling my book after that mother of mine, or grandmother, I forgot what it was, that she was such a knowledgeable lady. So I'm saying, we did have in our history also great women. But it means to say, general population. The Rambam does not really get into a gender discrimination. So in any case, that's what the Rambam says. So the way to worship God is by. He doesn't tell us positively. What's negative is to get something out of it. You shouldn't get anything out of the Torah and mitzvot. Halakha bet. So what should a person do? העובד מאהבה עוסק בתורה ובמצוות והולך בנתיבות החוכמה לא מפני דבר בעולם. A person shouldn't do anything which is valuable, learn Torah and mitzvot, because of something else. V'lo mipnei yirat hara. I shouldn't be afraid of anything bad happening to him who doesn't do it. V'lo kedei le'rasha tova. And not in order to get anything good. Ela bat. Oseh ha'emet mipnei shehu emet. You should do what's right because it's right. It's emet. However, sof hatova lavo biglala. At the end, what's good is going to come to him. Now, all the brachot will be there. And it's important for us to know that brachot are there. Doing Torah and mitzvot is good for us, ultimately, in all sense. But that should not be our motivation. We shouldn't be good people in order to get something out of it. We should be good people because we want to be good people. Because we're meant to be good. That's what I really want. I love God and I want to be like Him. I want to be good like He is good to me. I want to be good to others and good to myself. Yes? ומעלה זו היא מעלה גדולה מאוד, ואין כל חכם זוכה לה. So it's funny. On the one hand, Rambam says, well, only the simple people worship God in the wrong way. Now this is the right way, but very few people are able to reach that. So, there is something in between. In other words, you have the simple people who don't understand, the very great people who do understand, and what's in between. I guess there's something we have to work for, right? So the one who is really known in our history that he reached that level, that's Avraham, our forefathers. Hashem called him my beloved. Why? He worshipped God out of love. So as much as he loved God, Hashem loved him. That's why he's called the beloved of Hashem. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu told us. This is the level we should reach. That's what it says in the word of Ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, ובזמן שיאהב את אדם את השם אהבה הראויה, מיד יעשה כל המצוות מאהבה. If a person really loves God, then he's going to do all the mitzvot out of love. So there's really more in the Rambam, but I want to skip to the pasuk that the Rambam just mentioned of Ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Please turn to page 4 again. At the beginning of the page, ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. Why do we say that twice a day? I once heard from my Rebbe, we say Kriyat Shema twice a day. You know what? In modern technology, it could be compared to we are tuning in and we are tuning out. In other words, we are putting on our computer every morning and we say, God, I'm here. Right? Here I am. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We go to sleep, say, I'm going to sleep. Shutting off the computer. Right? That's what we do twice a day, every day. We are in, we are out, and even when we go out, it means we're going to sleep, and Hashem is going to give us a new start in the morning. So, the Pasuk says you have to love Hashem with all your lev, all your nefesh, all your wealth. So Rashi says like this, something very interesting. Ve'ahavta, aseh dvarav mi'ahava. Do what you do, what you're supposed to do out of love. Eino domeh oseh mi'ahava le'oseh mi'ira. You cannot compare if you do things out of love to someone who does good things out of fear. Ha'oseh etzel rabo mi'ira כשהוא מטריח עליו מניחו והולך לו. If someone does something for his master out of fear, if it's too much tircha, too much trouble, he's going to leave him. So let's think about it for a second. You have a slave. We don't have slaves nowadays, but imagine a servant that a servant tells him, gives him instructions. So Rashi says, well, if the only reason why he does things for his master is out of fear, then if it's going to be too much, he's just not going to do it. But if he does it out of love, he will. Now it's really counterintuitive if you think of it, because if he's afraid, then he's not going to let go because he's afraid of He's going to be punished. Well, if he loves God and he loves the master, then if it's too much, so, well, I love doing good things for you, but it's too much. Like it's too much tircha, it's too much trouble. But Rashi says the opposite. And I think what Rashi is telling us is the point we were discussing before. See, yir'ah, to fear the master, is something which is external. I'm doing it because of, I am afraid, I want something out of it. If it's something external, then by definition, it doesn't come from me. It's something from the outside. And then the question is, how much is that fear going to last? So more it's going to be troublesome, more it's going to be hard, that it's going to come to a point where it says, well, you know what, on the one hand I'm afraid, but that fear is not coming close to the trouble I have doing it now, just too hard. And then you're going to give up on it. In other words, if it's something outside of myself, then there will be something coming that theoretically is going to tell me, as much as I want to do it because of this and that, right now it's just too hard. Just 1 second. Well, if you ask me a question, yes? You ask me a question? No, but if you're doing it out of love, it means I'm doing it because that's what I want to do. If you want to do it, then what do you mean too much tircha? You want to because that's what you love doing, right? If you love, so the Rambam is going to later on is going to compare that to a love for another human being and love a man to a woman, then you just want to express your love. So then it's never too hard. Just it doesn't come to it by being too hard, because the love that you have, it comes from yourself. Something comes from within. So we're meant to worship God because that's what we want. We want to be connected to Him. Now, why do you want to be connected to Him? There's no reason why do you love your family, why as a man loves his wife, why a kid loves his parents, why the parents love their child. You just love the person because you love that person. Just the love. That's what I feel. That's what I want. That's what I love. What do you mean, why do I love? I love because I love. Now, of course, the love is always based on a premise. Well, the parents gave so much to you, and there's always a premise, but that's not why you love your parents. Love because you love. So that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to love God because you love Him. He's my friend. He's there for me. Of course I love Him. Of course I'm going to do things that is going to be pleasing to Him because He knows what's the best for me. That's why I'm doing it, for no other reason. But then, of course, why does God want me to do all that? Because He knows that's going to be ultimately good for me. But that's not the reason I'm doing it. Hanoch, you had a question?
Well, I wanted to say the master-servant relationship is based on power. So it has to be based on fear.
Right.
But
Well, sometimes I guess you could have
Very unusual.
very unusual, yeah.
But in the man-woman relationship, you have a giving-receiving.
Right.
And that when that becomes reciprocal, that's the basis for love. It's only unidirectional.
It's also not healthy, right?
This is what we spoke last.
That's right. No, I'm just, yeah.
I would like to add to it.
Sure.
There is a machlokes in the Gemara. If it was good or bad for man to be created.
Right.
So go and love him.
Well, do you really think that there's an opinion that says that it's really bad ultimately for a person to be created?
Well, this is what the Gemara says.
It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that because God wouldn't do something which is bad, right?
What did it mean? What they said?
What it means is that because ultimately so many men do not take advantage of their lives and they do things they shouldn't be doing and they're wasting their lives. So for them, it's better not to be created. But for the person who takes advantage of his life, of course it's wonderful. I mean, we all have an opportunity to do wonderful things with ourselves. Oh. But please, Rabbi Weinberg, I'm finished.
Okay. Fine, finish.
Please come on in. Don't see outside in the cold.
He's going next door to get some paper.
Okay. No, so I'm saying is, of course, God did not create the world to do anything bad. That's against the principle of God being God. It means that for so many people,
perspective, because the intention of God is one. Okay. What they are discussing is perspective of man. And the perspective of man, it would have been better not to be created.
no, for sure not. It's much better to be created. It's the biggest chesed that we exist, we live. I disagree with you completely, Jackie. I think that it means that for many, many people, they would have been better not to be created, unfortunately. But if we take advantage, Baruch Hashem, us who are trying to take advantage of life, of course creation is the biggest kindness that God could have done to us. That's what I was told by my rabbi. My rabbis, I'm giving that to you over, and I believe it to be true.
But did God ever say that man was good? He said everything else in creation was good. He saw it was good. But he never said that about man, did he?
Man becomes good. It doesn't say man is bad neither. It says the Yetzer Hadam Rami Neura. The man has temptation, tendencies to be bad. Man can be whatever he wants to be. It's our choice. So we have to make good choices. Nice meeting you all and seeing you again. And I wish you Shabbat Tov. All the best to you.